My name is Samira Mohyeddin, or Samira Mohyeddin, and I am a producer at The Current at CBC Radio. I also own and operate with my siblings an Iranian restaurant on Toronto's Queen Street West. You know, the whole notion of coming out is, I think, very particular to every single person. There isn't, I don't think, a right time to do it or a wrong time to do it. I think each person has to take a lot of things into consideration. And you know what? I've met a lot of people who've never had that mom, dad, I'm gay moment, you know. And you know, in my family, it was really different. I mean, my parents had a double whammy, you know. My brother and myself are also gay. So, you know, my sister is the disappointment in this case. But no, seriously though, I on my own sort of coming out journey, I never had that moment where I sat my parents down and said, Mom, Dad, I'm gay. I guess it was really around the age of 14 or 15 that I really knew, and I said, okay, this is who I am. And I never lied to my parents. Like, I never pretended to be straight. So, you know, I sort of dated guys until I was 14 or 15, and then no guys ever came home after that, right? So I think they just sort of put two and two together. I remember my father, for instance, he would say, well, when you marry this man, you can blah, blah, blah. And I would just look at him pointedly and say, Dad, I'm never marrying a man. I'm not interested in men. And then he would just laugh, you know, and I think that was his coping mechanism. But there was never a point where I was trying to sort of pull the wool over their eyes. But I was never really, I would not sort of bring a girlfriend home and say, Mom, Dad, this is my girlfriend. But I was always bringing girls home, you know, but we never sat down. It was like the classic don't ask, don't tell, you know?
Yeah.
The person that I would say that coming out, it was really, they brought me out. It wasn't me coming out to them. And it's a very funny story, actually. So my grandmother, God rest her soul, she lived with us my entire life. And I had met this girl that I was totally in love with at the age of 14. I mean, like head over heels. She was the captain of the cheerleaders. I was the captain of the women's basketball team. We were in junior high. And I was just, I don't know, everybody's been in love the first time, but like nothing made sense and I didn't care about anything. You know, I would put on different colored socks because I didn't care. And one day I came home and I took my science textbook and I put it in the refrigerator. Like, I opened the fridge and I put my textbook in the fridge and I closed it. And I walked over to the table and my grandmother looked at me and she said, "Oh, chérie," which means you're in love with her. And I looked at her and for like a second, I was like, oh my God. And I just froze. I didn't say anything to her. And she just said to me, "It's okay." You know, and that was really jarring for me at the age of 14, because here I thought I am, you know, nobody knows what's going on, you know. But many years later, I found out my sister knew. And those words that my grandmother said, just, "it's okay," made a huge impact on me at that age. I think that, you know, I also have a gay sibling. My brother is gay. And I think that that sort of gave me a different type of responsibility, because I felt, I mean, you already feel responsible for younger siblings, but I felt doubly responsible because I wanted to make sure that he had a safe space where he felt loved and that he could be himself. And so I try to sort of create that. You know, we have there's a 10-year difference between my older sister and my brother, and him and I have a 6-year difference. But I started taking him out with me, you know, into the gay village and stuff like that when he came out to me, and he came out to me in a letter, you know. And I have to tell you, like, at first I didn't believe that my brother was gay. I was like, what? Because I sort of even though I'm in the community, at first I was like, no, he can't be gay. And my mom did the same thing. She was like, your brother's room is dirty. He plays sports. You know, my brother's not effeminate. So all those stereotypes of what we think gay men are came rushing into my mom. And it took my mom, I would say, not too long, but it took her a bit longer to accept my brother than it did me. And, of course, my parents were wonderful, and I count my blessings because I've heard so many horror stories. But I think that they sort of wondered to themselves, because they even said this to me, like, what did we do? Like, was there something specific that we did to have 2 gay kids, right? And as I sort of got older, I met a lot more other families who had 2 gay siblings in the family. So my sister's really the disappointment here. I think that people from the Middle East, or myself, I'm Iranian, I think that our identities at times get wrapped up in religion and what state governments, what their laws are around homosexuality. I mean, I come from a country where homosexuality is punishable by death. We had a president who said there are no gays in Iran, which is something he'd like to think. But I mean, there's a thriving community, and I shouldn't say the word thriving, actually. There is a community in Iran, but it's all underground. And I think that as Iranians, I always felt that I had a responsibility to live out loud for all of those people who can't, and I don't think necessarily, though, that our community is more impacted or has to sort of be more shy to say who they are than the Christian communities or Jewish communities, because I have met many people in those communities who are not out, who don't feel comfortable, and they're not particularly from religious families, and really one of the things I want to say for a lot of people who are still in the closet, you never know how your family's really going to react. I mean, you might know because, you live in some fundamentalist home, or some, your family actively talks against the LGBTQ community. But that fear that you have, when I finally sort of met a person that I did bring them home to my parents, it was such a relief, because you go through life really having your parents not know you. A person's sexuality is such a huge part of who they are. It's not, at least for me, it's not just who I go to bed with at night. It impacts everything I do. And I really felt that my mom and dad didn't know me. They didn't know all of me. And that was really the impetus and the reason why I felt the need to, or feel the need to, sort of always talk about my sexuality whenever I can or whenever I'm asked to. Growing up as a kid who knew that there was something different. You're not sexualized at a young age, right? But I knew there was something different about me. And you can't really put that together until, you start to sort of hit puberty, and you think, oh, that friend is not just a friend in my mind. I have feelings for this individual. And you can start you develop these things about yourself, but it takes a long time before you can actually feel comfortable in your own skin. And I would say that I'm 46 right now. And I would say it's only in the last, I would say maybe 20 years, it was only like in my mid 20s, late 20s that I really felt comfortable everywhere. I felt comfortable to hold my partner's hand. I didn't care. In my teens, I was extremely closeted. High school, forget it. You did not. I did not grow up. Now, I'm always amazed when I see kids these days, 12, 13, 14-year-olds. They're in like the gay and lesbian club, and people are out. It's amazing. But we did not grow up in those times. People were constantly called awful names in school, bullied. And I'm sure that happens now too, but they have support structures now, which we didn't have back then. I marched in my first Pride Parade in 1998, and let me see, 27, so I was 23. Is that right? 75, 95? Yes, 23. And, I had a weird feeling. It was like all of these feelings all at the same time. So it was a mixture of fear, anxiety, and just being totally elated, right? And usually right now, like, they don't allow everyone to just march in the floats. You have to be part of a group. It's become really corporate these days. But back then, people could just join in. Like, you could just join in and march. And I found out, where PFLAG was. And so I marched with them. They always get the most claps, PFLAG. Which is Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. They're a big organization. And, I kept because there were cameras everywhere, like City TV and, cameras from like news media. And I kept dodging the cameras, making sure that I wasn't being seen, because I didn't want to have to explain, like, what were you doing there? Or I saw you at the Pride Parade, what were you doing there? And then on the other hand, there were all these people sort of ogling. And at times it was, I don't know, you feel like you're a zoo animal, and I don't know, it was a very weird event, but I'm very glad I went, because it stayed with me, that moment. And in subsequent years, I still go, even though I'm cynical about it, and you can be so cynical about these things, it's because I believe in the roots of what that march was about. It wasn't a parade, it was a march. And it was for rights. And I still march because there's so many people all over the world who don't have the rights that I do. When I went to visit Iran, for instance, in 1999, a year after I went to that Pride Parade, I was so depressed when I was there, because I just could not be myself. And when I returned to Canada, I thanked my parents profusely. For about a week, they were like, okay, leave us alone. But thanking them for coming here, because I don't know what would have happened to me if they had stayed in Iran, me and my brother, I think we can encourage more dialogue and more acceptance in our community by first not making stupid remarks and remarks that we think, oh, it's just a joke, remarks like, things like this. Like, these are things that kids hear from a young age, and that's what makes them think that I'm not okay, or there's something wrong with me, or that, I can't be normal around these people because this is how they really feel, So these sorts of remarks, we need to end them. And when we see them, we need to call people out and say, that's not okay, And the other thing is to just talk more, and be more present and visible. For those of us who are out, be as out as much as you can, and mentor people, mentor kids who might come to you. Like, I really think that our community lacks a real organization for gay and lesbian and trans youth who are Iranian. We don't have that. And that's something that we need. We have things that sort of are all over the world, but there's nothing really concrete here that people, whether it's a hotline or other things, that kids can reach out to. And not just kids, their parents. That's another thing that I think we need to develop as a community, is parents having other parents of LGBTQ kids that they can talk to. That's vital. If I could give one bit of advice to youth in our community specifically who are struggling and don't know how to come out, I would say that, and this is what I went through, at some point you have to say to yourself, this is who I am, and give that over to your parents to deal with, because we dealt with it for so many years, don't give your parents a free ride. Okay? Make them deal with it because they might surprise you. You never know. And at the end of the day, they love you, you know? And if they don't, to hell with them, because it's their loss. I also think, you know, we were talking about organizations, but I also think it's vital that an organization like Yara is doing something like this, because it's not an LGBTQ organization, you know, and that is another thing that I really admire about this organization, is that you've taken this discussion out of the realm of where, you know, it normally is, or, you know, it's normally ghettoized, and brought it out in front of everybody. So I applaud you for that, and thank you.